turning it up so people can hear me, and now we are turning it up so people can hear you, and we are putting us on the board, on the display. So, hello, Elf Travelers. Welcome back to the End of Planar Crossroads. Literally the End of Planar Crossroads this time, because we are going to be talking. It's our time on the rotation, and we are going to be talking about CR1 and lower creatures and our picks and advice and favorites from each of those different portions. So before we begin, let's everybody introduce our. Well, we kind of know who's here. We've got us from the End of Planar Crossroads. We've got Kane. We have
Hello.
we have Joe from the Black Dragon Gaming game. We have Donald, also from Black Dragon Gaming. And we have Tommy, the main guy from
the main
Black
guy.
Dragon Gaming. All right. So like we said, what we're going to be covering this time is some of our favorite monsters to use, pick, and advice for other monsters we may not have used or picked that can be used in our games that are CR1 and lower. Because everybody starts somewhere, right? Might as well figure out how to use some of these things as we do. And I'm going to try and have them up on their statistics up on the screen for people. We'll be using the D20 PFSRD, so we will probably put a link to that down in the description for everyone that wants to try and see those and use the same resource that we did. So, Tommy's not feeling super hot, so we'll start with him this time.
Great.
And let him get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way now, so you can just
So
you
I can just pass
relax.
out for the rest of the streams.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so we'll let you pick, and then we'll go back down through the CRs if we have time.
All right. So then I'm gonna start, I guess, with. I think he comes in at a CR1 half. Yeah, he's a CR1 half. It's just a little gross anthropomorphic dog thing called the Pugwampy Gremlin. And I've never got a chance to use them, but they're really, really, really powerful because, like, to speak in 5e, everybody within 20 feet, you give them disadvantage, no save, which that's roll twice anytime you... Oh, the entry reads attack roll, skill check, or saving throw, but any d20 roll, you roll twice, take the lower. Like I said, I've never really had a chance to use these guys, but, like, though you start usually, like, down here, I think... the monsters you're going to use ought to scale as you level up, as you go through your game, and thus the Pugwampy. Oh, there's a couple things that are immune to what it does. Animals, gnolls specifically, for some reason, are immune. I don't remember what the other one is. Somewhere in here it says it. It doesn't work on animals, other gremlins, or gnolls. That's it. Or any character who gains some sort of luck bonus. So if we're playing a bunch of people with Fate's favored. One of the better traits, you probably, if you're using traits, probably somebody has Fate's favored.
Just a party of halflings.
Yeah. But if you're not, you can stack these guys up from CR, from like party level 1 to party level 20, just like hide one of these little dudes in the bad guy's backpack, and then suddenly they're all rolling disadvantage forever. If your bad guy's a gnoll, you're fine. If your bad guy is not a gnoll, then you just give him a luck stone, he gets a luck bonus, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was definitely one that I was eyeing. I think several of us were eyeing, I'm going to talk about the Pugwampy. No one talks about the Pugwampy. And then someone talks about the Pugwampy. So
I didn't know this thing existed until I'm a real big fan of Reddit and a real big fan of, like, when I get stuck, a lot of times, like, if I'll go to, like, the Pathfinder Facebook page and post there, you'll get a lot of, like, shitty troll answers, for lack of a better way to say it, but Reddit will pretty much give you what you need when you need it, and that's where I figured out that the Pugwampy was a thing. Again, haven't got a chance to use it yet, but, like, I definitely will.
I haven't had that problem with Facebook.
Lucky you.
all right. So we will go back, and speaking of trolls, Joe, your character, I believe, is it your character that's the troll?
Yeah. Well, I'm essentially a troll. That's the short answer of it. The long answer is I'm a changeling from Norse folklore, but we won't get into that.
Okay.
Um,
So
um,
what's the creature that you wanted to point out the most? Let's say.
are we the most? Are we starting in the lower CRs, or are we just going anywhere?
We'll come back to the lower CRs and work our way, but I wanted to point out everybody's one that they wanted
Favorite?
to get in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the carbuncle.
Oh, I saw that one.
I love things that mess with people's minds. I love things that just like can screw up everyone's stuff and like cast suggestions and charm persons. And the carbuncle is that CR1 creature that just does that so well. The empath, he has that crude form of telepathy. It kind of gives them like, I mean, they're pretty intelligent, so like they're like working together is kind of like, oh, it makes me happy inside. But the things I especially love is the fatal faker, the like if you know what Trouble in Terrorist Town is, they kind of pull that on people. They leave behind like dead bodies to make people think that they're dead, and then they can like hide around weird places. And then the suggestion, he's kind of crappy about it with his roll of a d6. He can give someone an insight bonus, so it's kind of fair to them for his like some of his overpowered stuff. But then he can give someone suggestion and force them to do things that he wants them to do, and then he gives them a neg on their will saves. I don't know. It's just such a fun little creature to throw at people. I've never done it before, but I've done plenty of things just like him.
Yes, and he's not necessary. He's got a lot of stuff going on when you look at his stat block, which we have up on the screen. But he's definitely, he has that weakness down there at the bottom of vulnerability to suggestion. So any enchanters in your party, enchanters or enchantresses, would be able to
Screw him
really mess him over. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think his will save. Let me check. His will is a
He doesn't have the
+3,
best.
so a first level character, a first level PC, should be able to handle that type of a will save from their opponent.
Yeah, it's the fatal faker thing, and the fact that he's got enough intelligence on himself to be a cunning opponent.
Right.
That's what really makes him.
He is as
Despite
intelligent as any
looking
human.
really dumb.
Any average.
Yeah,
human.
despite looking like a tadpole with a pimple on its forehead.
Yeah, if you've ever seen a picture of a carbuncle lizard from, because I think these things existed in 3.5 too, but in Pathfinder they look kind of like a gecko with a dumb little crystalline unicorn horn coming out from between its eyes. It is an embarrassing looking animal.
Yeah, it's basically a chameleon with a gem instead of a horn, is what it kind of looks like to me.
Well,
yeah, that's a good.
think about the design. It is not as bad as the fluff is.
The fluff? The fluff?
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes.
don't diss the fluff. The fluff?
The fluff is one of my favorite monsters just for the artwork alone.
Oh, is that your CR1 pick? We'll go to you next, Don.
No. Nope. It's just something I point out. Some ugly monsters look cute.
Oh, the flump.
The flump, yes.
Yeah. So it's my pick.
Yep.
This is a classic. It have to be the kobold.
The kobold.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cheating. They're intelligent.
This creature, if you use it right, you can ruin a low-level adventurer's day just from traps alone. I think in there was one article done on the kobold. A GM used kobolds traps to kill off a high-level party just using traps and group tactics.
Exactly, Tommy. The article you're referring to is called Tucker's Kobolds. Tucker's Kobolds refers to a game run by a bunch of military personnel. Their DM was their sergeant, I believe, or their captain, one or the other. And they ran into a den of kobolds, and the kobolds had set up a tunnel filled with murder slits and barricades that they then lit on fire. And they just peppered them with explosives and arrows the entire way until they were running in a much older edition of Dungeons and Dragons. It was probably AD&D or something.
It probably was. It probably was first or second edition.
Yeah.
It was. And the best part about kobolds, as a monster race, you can give them class levels as well. So you can.
Player race.
Yes, they are. So a GM could use these minions up to level 20 if they want to, especially if having them as have the kobolds as a high level servant to a dragon. So give a kobold levels in wizard, sorcerer, or anything, and that kobold is a major threat.
And
given time, if you look at the rules for craft trap making, they're nasty.
Yeah, kobolds are pretty nasty for that if you use them properly.
And an interesting note about that too is I was looking at that as I was looking through different monsters for me to pick. The way the rules kind of make it seem is that by picking a class, you basically go up one step in your challenge rating, which means you could still have a 1, 2, 3rd level kobold as a CR1 encounter. Just flat CR1. Nothing crazy, no big high levels. But that means 3 levels in a kobold with 3 levels in rogue or something like that. Yeah, that's the CR system starts to break down.
Yeah, give a kobold a high level when it comes to stealth, and give them invisibility. A player is going to have a bad day, especially if they're dealing with a group of kobold rogues.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially rat folk that have rogue levels, but that's another thing altogether.
Yeah, that's another monster. That's another creature.
Yeah,
Your level 3 kobold pulling the last stand with it's just like he's the last kobold in his burrow, and he's just rigged everything to blow.
Yeah, well, kobolds would probably do that too. All right, okay, Kane, you cannot escape forever. It is your turn.
No. I've been so quiet up until now, though. I've actually got another pretty common one. My favorite from CR1 is actually probably the ghoul. I really like ghouls because I think they level well through the CRs. They're one of the few monsters you see in Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder that when it gets strong enough, it just turns into a different monster. High hit dice ghouls become ghasts, which are ghouls on steroids that smell really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing about
ghastly.
the thing about ghouls, if you go with the right ghoul type, you can actually affect the player by giving them ghoul fever or nasty diseases to make them ghouls.
Yeah,
the other
nice thing about ghouls is they come in a variety of like corpus flavors.
Yeah, with the undead, especially for zombies and ghouls, you can reflavor them for any race pretty much.
Yeah. Can't a ghoul also, as it levels, can't they paralyze things that are normally immune to paralysis, like elves and stuff?
That is that. So normally ghouls can't paralyze things that are immune to sleep or elves, but ghasts can. Their version of ghoul paralysis overcomes resistances. So if you fuck up the save, a ghast can paralyze a dragon, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know why a dragon would miss that save, but Yeah.
It could be a young dragon. You don't know.
It could be a baby dragon.
Oh, come on. The wormlings don't count. Don't go hunting the wormlings. Sick
CR is
people.
a ghast?
I don't know. Right now we're sticking to CR1s and low. But
Yeah, they like. I also like them because you can give them class levels and everything. And if you put Ghoul Fever on certain monsters, they actually turn into different creatures. Gulls are like genies or like half djinn afflicted with Ghoul fever. They're just like a really nice low level mob enemy that you can throw at your party that inflicts a frankly really nasty status effect.
or you don't even have to throw a party of them at it, because if you've got someone like Aldern Foxglove, who only had 3 levels of rogue, he could wreck. And he was quiet, and man, I mean, you guys were lucky. And that's from Rise of the
Okay.
Moon Lords for people that wanted to know. But he was a ghoul
There's
with class
a
levels.
feat for ghouls called civilized ghoulishness that's basically the ghoulish equivalent of pass for human.
Yeah. So I have a problem with undead in games like Pathfinder and D&D. You have to make them scary. Otherwise, they're just fodder. Ghouls can be scary. Zombies are not scary to me. Not even to my player character are they scary, because they're constantly staggered. I don't like... you can't use that. Someone would have to literally
There's
walk up
some-
2 of them and then say,
There's
okay, boom. And that's your basic zombie. But your basic ghoul, even your basic skeleton, moves free, has regular movement. So,
And they're really smart.
mm,
They're smarter than your average human.
yes.
Yeah, the good thing about ghouls, if you have enough class levels, you can make them into NPCs pretty much, which is pretty nice if you need to have like a ghoul wizard that's been around like a few centuries.
Hmm. It does make me wonder if ghouls... That's homework for later, I guess. If ghouls and undead like that take aging the same way.
No, they don't. They're not affected by aging. They get the benefits of aging, but they don't get the penalties.
So they do get the benefits. Man, just be a ghoul and stay away from everyone and study your books. Emerge
But
20 years later as a 20th level wizard and just, with all of those stat changes, and just wreck stuff. There you go. But that would not be a CR1 encounter.
no.
Let's back up. And people was taking my stuff. Man, I was going to say ghouls and stuff like that. So let's see. What was one that I wanted to highlight? Well, probably my favorite enemy to throw at everybody. I have at least one in all my games. No, I'll highlight it later. The one I want to highlight, I haven't got to use it yet either, but kind of based off of its variability and ability to change around, is the Mongrel Man. I like Mongrel Man. I like the idea of the Mongrel Man. It is a creature that is basically just a kind of stitch work of other creatures that have been put together. I'll pull up a picture for people. But,
Like a flesh golem,
well,
carrion golem,
it's one of those things where they've got...
except natural.
Yeah, so one might have ivory tusks, insect chitin, matted fur, scaly flesh, and more combined into a hideous humanoid shape. But what makes them interesting is that they're lawful neutral by default, So they're lawful neutral by default, and despite their monstrous appearances, it says mongrel men are generally hardworking and peaceful creatures. So it's like no two mongrel men are going to be the same. So if you have a funky looking person in your group or in your game, and you don't know what race you can make them a mongrel man, because they can literally be a amalgamation of all the different races, and they don't have very good pictures. There's a picture in the bestiary that's better, but they're lawful neutral. They're not inherently evil, but they're still going to be defending homes and stuff like that. They're going to be coming in. Usually, you might find a solitary one, but usually they're going to be in pairs or gangs, and they don't live very long and stuff like that. But it's their use in a game as either an antagonist that is not evil, or an ally, or a possible ally, to be diplomatized. So there's lots of different options for this creature, especially when you start looking at its sound mimicry. Because if it finds intruders, if a gang of them find intruders on their land, like 3 of them, they just have to listen to the voice, and then they can go and mimic it. And that could really throw some off, because a lot of the times they're found underground, in caves and stuff like that, far from civilization, which means things like Underdark. And it's so easy to get turned around in the Underdark. So easy. So
They're like the sewer mutants from Futurama.
kinda, I guess.
Is that the mimic ability remind me of the Kenku racial ability?
That they can get. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I remember, Kenkus, they cannot talk, so they use the mimic ability to talk.
Oh, the Knolls in 4th edition had the same thing. It was called Hunter's Lure.
Cool.
Yep. Tengu have it's said that Tengu talk in an amalgamation of different kind of voices that they've kind of made their own, or just mimicking other people's voices, or using sound effects. So if they're talking about money and they say, "We want paid," they might say, "We want," and then they would make the noise for change falling, or coins, or something like that. So that can be fun for someone trying to roleplay that. I think Magpie has.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be super annoying.
Magpie just watched too many old He-Man cartoons when he was a wee.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, so those are the ones with.
I am not nice.
So those are the ones we wanted to talk about. But we can go back now because we have the time. We've got a whole 35 minutes, if we're going to have a 1-hour chat, to go and highlight some others that we might find interesting through these CRs. So anybody that wants to, they can go to that Bestiary by CR page, and they can look at what I'm looking at. And you can see that we start at 1/8. All right. So does anybody want to highlight any of them in here? In the CR 1/8?
In 1/8, honestly, I think as I'm looking at them here, most of these things aren't really that good unless you have a swarm of them. In which case, all bets are off. Swarms are wonderful, but I don't remember what happens when a skunk sprays you. I think it nauseates you. I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's actually.
I'm not even sure at that. I think it might just be sickened.
No, I will highlight skunks.
Nauseated for 1d4 rounds, then sickened, it says.
Yes, that's actually supposed to be in the CR1 4th area. So it's nauseated. And
I see.
We'll skip down there since we talked about it already. You guys. I mentioned
No,
it
it's not.
was
It's not that it's placed incorrectly. It's that they have a CR 1/8 from a third-party publisher, and then a CR 1/4 from Paizo itself.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Sherry 3.
That too, yeah.
But I actually like the Musk ability for a creature that's a CR 1/4. It's not bad because it's even if you save, a successful save reduces the effect to only 1d4 rounds of being sickened. So, if you're going to use low CR monsters, I think you should use things that do things like this, that have something happens. Period. You don't have.
Hmm.
You can use things that are saved. Like I did want to talk about the only one that I think's worth using outside of a swarm necessarily is just finding a lot of them can be a problem. Not necessarily a swarm would be the house centipede, and that's only because it has a bite for injury. So and it's got a DC 10,
One
2
other
rounds. So
another 1/8 monster. If you use it properly for the creature base attack and make it a touch attack, is the toad. Give the toad a very weak poison, and the players need to make saves all the time not to be affected by the poison.
there is actually a poisonous frog down lower, but yes. So poisonous things are always nice to use, but I like insectoid things. I wanted to point it out because when we get a little later, when we get down into the 1/4, I want to highlight one that actually would take advantage of those type of creatures. So, anybody have any other remarks about the CR 1/8s?
The only thing I really have to say, like again, like I know skunk is secretly 1/4, but also 1/8, and up to and including the house centipede. That DC seems really, really low, but at level 1, like turn it on the witch or something. The witch is probably going to fail it. Just anybody with a bad fort save. These numbers aren't guaranteed. They're just like okay, if the house centipede bites your barbarian, he's probably going to just shake it off. He doesn't care. But again, your witches, your wizards, your anybody who didn't think about their con score / has a bad fort save, they're going to succumb to them. And they're going to succumb to them as the game rolls on a little bit too.
The thing about 1/8 monster doing minimum damage, that is not a lot of damage. So like 1 damage per round, that is just tickling the players pretty much.
Yeah, but we've got 14 hit points, and you're fighting other things.
Right. So
we should. Speaking of going through our favorite monsters by the CR, I think one of these weeks we should also do maybe do a talk about designing encounters.
That would be sweet.
Maybe we should do that next week on Black Dragon Gaming.
So we could talk about designing encounters maybe that employ some of our favorite monsters here.
Oh, so make it a theme. We talk about the monsters one week and then we use them in encounters the next week on Black Dragon Gaming.
That sounds fun to me. Yeah, sounds great.
Yep, that sounds like a plan potentially.
And I like it because we don't have to think up new stuff to put on them.
Yeah.
All right. Back to brass tacks though. So CR 1/8's done. CR 1/6. Anybody have any remarks? There's only 3 creatures in there, which is kind of odd. I only have 3.
Those
creatures.
are familiars. Those are definitely just there to be familiars.
Yeah, they're just there to be familiars.
I would say that too. But I would like to say that the Raven, if I was going to use a Raven, I would treat it more like a real life Raven. And I would say, okay, they mimic voices. Because that can be very tone setting. If you give a Raven because they have that ability in real life. And they're not good at it.
Well, so do all Corvids.
Yeah, they're like parrots. So I mean, they're just going to say what they hear. But ravens understand context like parrots do. A lot of birds that parrot understand context to a certain extent. So sometimes when they're laughing at you, they're really laughing at you. But having it kind of call the name that it's heard a lot, and I think these lower CR monsters are good for setting, like I said, tone. The Raven can be good if you have it fly off into the kind of leadingly fly as a familiar would back to its master and keep saying its master's name, or and the PCs follow it, or things like that. And while that doesn't create an encounter, it does set the mood, which can be just as beneficial.
Another one six monster. It is the lizard. If you use them and use them as a group.
Well, everything's good in groups.
Yeah, the lizard. It just like the 1/8 monster. It doesn't do that much damage. Minimum 1 damage, but place them in a early dungeon, or close to a adventurer's lair. These tiny monsters can be a menace if you use them in a group, especially with traps involved.
I still really can't see these as anything other than a familiar. Can you imagine being attacked by a group of bearded dragons?
Do you want to be imagining
Turtles.
an attack from a
Or
Suddenly,
turtles, yeah.
7 turtles!
No, being attacked by a group of snapping turtles is a horrible nightmare, and I don't wish that on anyone.
You haven't told me that.
Oh man, what
Snapping turtles come out of the stream that I live next to all the time.
what if you got captured by the big bad and
Ravens.
he just let these lizards and turtles come, and he had some kind of control over them, and he said sick 'em, and he just tied you down and let them slowly eat away at you. Ooh. That'd be
Ravens. Ravens.
Well, I mean, people used to actually do that with rats.
Ravens, they are the worst. Worst, especially if you command the Raven to actually peck a player eyes out or peck at them.
They'd still have to obey the called shot rules, though.
One,
Yeah, true. If a creature is flat-footed at level 1, that should be easy enough to hit.
well, they've got a +4 on their bite. They actually have a pretty decent attack, but probably one of my favorite instances of someone using ravens as, like Adam said, like as a set piece, was this guy was running a game and his players were sitting around a campfire and they were trying to figure out how they were going to deal with whatever problem it was they were facing currently. And they were playing in Roll20 or some form of virtual tabletop, and as they were talking, the longer they talked, he just kept adding raven tokens into the trees around them.
Yeah.
Until one of them finally looked back up at their computer screen, and the conversation just died because there were like 30-something raven tokens just crammed into the screen, into the trees surrounding this campfire, all pointed at the party.
Mm-hmm.
And like stuff like that generates a really sort of like sinister, like what the fuck is going on moment in the role play.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like. All right. So that is CR16, lackluster, pretty kind of category, but CR14, things start to change a smidgen. You get some useful things in here, I would think.
It's a tiny bit.
Tiny bit. This is where the kobold falls.
Well, you got giant botflies. Those are gross.
Yeah. Giant botflies. Nasty. So, that is one I wanted. We brought up. Joe brought it up, I think. Botflies. Nasty things. The save's not high, but then again, it's every time it hits you, you have to make that save. Every time it stings you, and it's got a +4 to sting at level 1, that can be problematic for those squishier targets. It can be... It's not hard to get them out, it's not hard to make the save, but if you don't... Yuck. Because it does con damage, which is bad, at low levels,
Yeah.
especially. Say you've got a caster.
And if you play a lot of modules, the Scarlet Spider is in this CR category as well.
It is.
They've got a really high to hit at +7 for a CR 1/4 monster,
Yeah.
and they do strength damage if you fail your fort save for their poison. So they're not super dangerous, but they're not nice either.
Another thing about the monster you mentioned, if the party have a poison maker, you could milk the monster to make poisons.
With a good enough
Yeah,
check.
unfortunately in Pathfinder, poisons really only become super useful if you're an alchemist who or any other class that gets the ability to concentrate poison.
Yeah, true. Poisons are very useful up to a certain point only.
But also let it be known that additional doses of poison administered in combat, like in additional rounds, if you poison someone the first round and they make the save, if you poison them again the next round, the DC increases by 2 for multiple doses.
Mm-hmm.
See, so if you had this little Scarlet Spider running around, it's got an AC of 18, and that's nothing to sneeze at level 1 for a non or even a mid-combat character.
Like levels 1 through 3.
Yeah. So
18 AC. 18 AC. That is like a level 1 fighter AC potentially.
At least.
At least.
Another monster, if you use it as a set piece or just to annoy the players, it is the monkey.
The monkey.
Realistically, based upon where. Yeah, the monkey. If I were to use it, I would have the monkey take certain items off of the party members. If they were sleeping, the monkey take a few items.
Monkeys are jerks.
Or, yes, monkeys. They are jerks of the nature world, just like cats.
Well, cats are passive aggressive about it. I mean, they hate you, but they leave you alone. Monkeys, they're the internet trolls of the nature world. They will mess with you just to mess with you.
Yeah, like a cat's never stolen my wallet.
Just to steal the wallet.
Monkeys have definitely stolen people's wallets.
Monkeys. If they didn't like you, they could just throw rocks at you and just flee.
Or poop.
Monkeys also have really sharp teeth. I don't know if that's reflected in the Pathfinder stat block, but getting bitten by a monkey is nasty.
They do have a bite, and it's +4 to hit.
Yeah. If the monkey was throwing, monkey was throwing monkey poo at you, then you would have to make fortitude save.
To not get nauseated.
Especially if the poo. Yes.
Oh,
you ever get dysentery?
Oh my gosh, it's so bad.
Cholera or something.
One that I like in
and that's how we get filth fever, kids.
Yeah, that's how you get filth fever. So this.
What were you saying, Tommy?
I was saying that's how we get filth fever.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Also, I don't know if it came up or not because my computer is feeling about as well as I am. But I see that a monkey has a climb speed, which can be super relevant at low levels when we don't have reach weapons necessarily, but we probably definitely can't fly either.
Unless you're
so you just get the monkey run up on the ceiling. Yeah. Or a wyvern.
Yeah, the monkey, I could picture them in a group if they are 60 feet above the players, just toss rocks at the party below.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, low chance to hit them, but it would be some damage.
Yeah.
And some parties can do just literally nothing about that. It's not a bad way to teach a new group of people that's really important to even if you're just on that human barbarian, here is your great axe and hit it, that kind of thing. It's important to have that ranged option as well.
A weapon for every type of damage.
That sounds like a fighter.
Yeah.
That's a morning star and a sword.
Yeah, it's pretty easily solved. A small morning star and a sword. One that I wanted to point out, and the reason that I wanted to kind of mention the house centipede and mention the other stuff, is that there is the mite. And the mite in Pathfinder is a pitiful creature. But the mite has a ability. Vermin, I think it's vermin empathy. It's like wild empathy, but for vermin. Which means a mite could potentially be a vermin lord. Just stew on that for a moment. A mite
It's definitely a thing.
vermin lord. He could
Swarm of cockroaches.
He could have 2 levels. No, he could have. Let me look. No, he could have 3 levels of something and still be a CR1 creature. Still be in our example a 3rd level vermin
Is he
lord.
intelligent?
So
It has 8 intelligence.
and be riding a. If you use point buy, that doesn't really matter. But and be riding a large level vermin, like a spider with poison.
This is another idea. A kobold that is a vermin lord.
You could definitely do it.
Oh yeah, but he'd just be summoning his own food source. Kobolds eat spiders, don't you know?
Yeah. Looking at the mite, I see it's also got, I think this is the first time we've seen it scrolling down, but it has DR over cold iron, which,
Yes.
like, at CR1-4, I don't think the party's going to be ready for that, probably.
Right, it's DR2.
The funny thing I remember about,
Yeah.
yeah, it's still 2 points of damage that it's not taking.
Right.
So if you've got a bunch of dudes with daggers or something, or like your rogues are sitting patiently waiting on level 3 so they can start adding dex to damage, they might not even scratch this thing.
This same party of halflings is just
Yeah.
So I need that human swashbuckler. That inspired blade in there.
the funny thing I remember about mites is from earlier editions. In 3.5, they had, like, in Savage Species, that same book that gave you monsters, high-level monsters, as classes so you could play them. Also had a bunch of rules on converting monsters into player races using the level adjustment rules, which were terrible and awful.
Yes, they were. Oh, man.
But mites also were in that category of monsters that had been adjusted for player use, but the mite was the only race in all of 3.5 that had a negative level adjustment. You actually got extra classes for playing one.
I would
I can dig
totally
it.
do that.
Adam,
Because mites were so pathetic, they needed the help.
I would totally play
Adam, another deadly potential monster for 1/4 CR would be the kobold zombies. Give a kobold necromancer a kobold zombie servants.
Yeah.
And
because they're
that's
CR1
a
port.
encounter by itself.
Yes, kobold necromancer called Pick.
True. Kobold servants, best servants ever.
Well, the kobold zombie has a HP of 12, which is fair at that level. And
Well,
DR5.
I think
slashing.
it's, what is it, zombies? All zombies have it.
Yeah.
Have a hit die of 12, don't they?
Right, but for a kobold, that's
They get
not
bonus
bad.
hit die.
Yeah.
That's a lot of health for a kobold.
Yeah, 12 hit points, and then don't really get much more hit points from charisma, but toughness definitely makes them tougher.
And it gives them toughness as their base feat, which is pretty good. Which you could also take as a mite to get more than 2 HP or 3 HP. But if you could get one strong enough, it'd be funny. That's everything that I see for CR1 4th. So let's move on to CR1 3rd. Anybody see anything in CR1
Orcs.
3rd? Orcs.
Yes, I actually do. Sanguine ooze swarm.
I saw
This
that.
creature,
Go ahead.
It have a pretty nasty. It have a pretty nasty attack called Europhoric slime. For a attack done to it, it have to make a fortitude save or be targeted by the slime.
Right, euphoric slime. DC
Isn't that just
13
like
for-
auto staggered? Is that right?
Yeah, you uncontrollable
so
laughter
it would
staggered
be,
for a round.
Mhm.
However, if it also
Yeah,
hits you, it
give-
has viscous.
For a CR1,
Again, that party of halflings just getting wrecked by centipedes and ravens and stuff. Oh, it's smaller, larger. I see. Okay.
oozes. If you use that monster type right, they can definitely wreck a party.
Swarms too. Swarms are, and then going on. Well, swarms themselves, like from anything from at this CR, we're looking at ooze swarms, and then up to like leech swarms, tick swarms, things like that. It's automatic damage, and like as we scale and level that, I guess this guy does what, 1? Yeah, he does 1 damage, but that's going to stack up eventually if you have to have your party say like run through a room that's all just covered in these little crappy terrible swarms. They might take 10, 11 damage trying to get through that room.
Right. I thought about mentioning this one too, but I wasn't impressed enough. But there are ways to use it, yeah. So we saw orc. There's a lot of the races that you would see under quote monster kind of start to come in now. Kobold and stuff like that were not considered. They're monstrous races, but they're pretty low on the Pathfinder totem pole.
Yeah.
You start
Yeah. Considering that Donald decided that he would bring up kobolds, I thought I would just bring up orcs really quickly. I have used them to devastating effect with the bigger brothers you find in the Game Mastery Guide. They can be very devastating, especially to Skinwalker Paladins who don't expect a Gorthek Rider to come up and deal non-lethal damage and carry them off.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Uh,
At like level, I think I was like level 8 at the time too, and these guys just like orcs can swing way over their CR, and like God forbid you slap a barbarian level on them.
Yeah, these week I was just using the straight up stats out of the Pathfinder. CR 1/3 orcs, the common ones, swinging falchions, orc lieutenants, or orc sergeants, orc lieutenants, Gorthric riders, and orc rangers. But those little cannon fodder guys were able to protect their bigger brothers until one of them was able to knock out Tommy Skinwalker and carrying him off.
And then I have to fight through a camp to get to a city, and it's like these guys are low CR, but they're hitting and they have a threat range of 18 to 20, which means like on their best day, that's essentially what, 44 plus 8, I think.
Yeah.
That'll wreck a party really easy. And ferocity is also super strong as well.
Well, did you fight through that party by yourself, or was the party there with you?
I had
No,
2
they-
NPCs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was like another thing I wanted to talk about is like a lot of videos you see about DMing talk about letting your players just feel like badasses sometimes. Fighting your way out of a war camp by yourself or with the help of a couple non-player characters is, I feel like, a pretty good way to feel like a badass.
He
Yeah,
had a
that was-
kineticist and a displaced World War I English sniper.
Mhm. Definitely felt pretty good,
displaced
but it was a
World
lot
War
of
I
like it was a
English sniper?
huge log.
Yeah, Rory Macbeth. He's a guy from another game that we never got to complete. And Rory
Were
was
you-
actually knocked out for most of the game.
Were you playing Wrath of Winter?
No, we were playing
Spoilers.
Ultimate Marvel.
Oh, okay.
All right. So yes,
But she converted okay.
But spoilers for an adventure path that's been out for 8
however many
years.
years, yeah.
In Wrath of Winter, you kill Rasputin in World War II. Woo-hoo.
World War One. It's
World
1917.
War One.
So you got orcs. You got
Baba
another
Yaga
surprising.
Sorry.
There's another race in here that can be very powerful, even on land, if you give them a proper racial feat, and that's merfolk. They don't lose too much being on land, especially if you're in a dungeon type setup. There's not a lot of places to run. So if for some reason a merfolk person is on land, they have... You throw a class level on them or something like that, a couple class levels, and they're really not that hard to challenge a party with. They have amphibious, not just aquatic, so that can be a good idea. And they take no... when you turn them into a PC, they take no negatives. They gain 2 natural armor, so your AC is going to be up for that particular level, especially. So I could see...
Am I reading it correctly that a merfolk gets +2 dexterity, +2 constitution, +2 charisma as a PC?
You are reading it right.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
That's nice.
Isn't it? It is
Yeah,
beautiful.
It is super beautiful.
Tommy, the only issue when it comes to aquatic races, unless if you choose to take the necessary feats and racial powers, when it comes to wizards casting certain spells in the advanced player guide, Merfolk land speed is terrible.
Yeah.
It's 5 feet, but their swim speed is 50. However, there is a racial trait called thick tail or wide tail or something like that, or strong tail, that's what it is, that gives them 15 feet, which is not
it turns
something...
them into an anime Lamia monster girl.
Yeah, which is not bad. I mean, it's doable, especially if you're using it as a caster race, which it totally works beautifully as a dragon sorcerer. If you get this guy with a dragon disciple thing, he eventually gets wings.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yes.
Another good dragon disciple. Maximize your AC. Use the shield and mage armor with their spell, and you're pretty much become a tank for AC at the lower levels.
Oh,
Yeah, Dragon Disciples held up really well moving forward from 3.5. I think the rest of the prestige classes, at least from we're talking Assassin, Duelist, I think is one of them. Mystic Theurge. I might be biased against the Mystic Theurge because I just play Gestalt games all the time. But Dragon Disciples are really powerful.
Yes.
It's just raw stat increases forever.
Yeah, the if you're just talking about prestige classes that give raw stat increases, are you familiar with the Paragon class or the Paragon race classes from 3.5, Tommy?
I am not.
No. You can just Google them, Paragon, the Paragon race classes that do a lot of the same things. They'll give you 1 or 2 abilities and then just a couple raw ability increases. If you want to play a Paragon, a dwarf who's extra dwarfy, or a human who's extra humy.
Humy. Extra hums. Meat
I am
bags.
curious. So, how would a human be more human?
An extra feet.
He's
at
just
first level.
super charismatic.
Super human-y. When other people who are human look at that dude, they're like, he's the humanist.
Every non-human wants to sleep with him.
You become the Ubermensch.
You become Jack Harkness. Okay, that's what you become.
Jack Harkness, who is responsible for centaurs and.
So,
Okay.
getting back on track.
Swans and mermaids and.
Adam, another 1/3 creature that is quite deadly if you use them right. It is the dire rat.
Yes. Is the dire rat in here on 1/3? Yep,
Yes,
I believe
1/3.
it is.
Rat's in the basement.
Yes. My favorite. Let me tell you a story of one of my favorite encounters. Me and my party, we were doing the typical noobish adventure, clear the house basement of the rat infestation quest.
Mhm.
So
Classic.
yeah, so the party and us, we cleared the house of the rats, and with the disease ability they have, when we got back to town and rested up, we felt like utter wrecks the day after due to all the damage done from the Phil's fever.
Mhm. Yeah. So it
if
has
you-
effects that last after the encounter.
Yes,
Mhm.
AGM, that uses that wisely can easily teach the party how important saves are.
Yeah.
All right. We're running pretty tight on time, so we're going to highlight a few more in here and a few more in the next, and then a few more in ones as fast as we can. So I wanted to mention that Drow fall into the 1/3, which are always neat to use. Not the nobles now, but regular Drow. The Duragar are in this CR level, and they are pretty strong. So,
Yeah.
and even if you did do the Drow nobility, it only bumps them up, I think, 1 CR category or maybe two CR categories.
The nobles are mostly nasty as monsters because of their spell likes than because of their fantastic abilities.
Yes. So there's that.
And the
My favorite PC monster to have as in the game that I always have one in a game of that I mentioned before is the goblin, and I just like goblins. I like Pathfinder goblins, I should say, not all goblins.
They're super adorable.
One of my favorite monster races I enjoy playing have to be the hobgoblins because,
Those-
well,
Our next CR, which will transition well.
yeah.
So tell
Yes.
us about your love for hobgoblins.
Hobgoblins, being lawful evil, they make a pretty good monster race if you need to deal with them. I think you and Andrew covered lawful evil quite well, and hobgoblins, they make a pretty good social race as well, especially in the Distant Shore book. The hobgoblins have a city dedicated to themselves. The cog.
Yeah.
They're a fun martial race to play.
Yes.
Yeah, hobgoblins make for like a really good foreign military threat.
Yeah. And hobgoblins.
Yeah, there was an
also,
entire.
you would think that it would be tieflings and Azamars that could be considered offshoots of each other. Not offshoots, but mirrors of each other. But I really don't think so, because tieflings take a negative to one of their stats, whereas Azamars don't. Now thematically they are, but stat-wise, I would consider the hobgoblin to be Azamar's mirror, because they take no negatives. The hobgoblins have no negatives. The Azamars have no negatives. Now the Azamars are, in my opinion, better stat-wise for what you can do with them, because there is so much variety that you could get into.
Yeah.
All those different bloodlines.
Yeah, and
Same with
people
the
love
tieflings.
ASMRs, which is going to be helpful in most campaigns.
The tiefling, it with one of the racial traits it have. If you go with the abyssal or the infernal bloodline, that makes them pretty good for that role.
I'm very fond of the tiefling because you have blood of angels and then blood of demons, or whatever it is. And both of those give different racial types. I like that the tieflings got a racial type before deep ones were a thing.
The Clippeth.
Yeah, the Klipoth, or Klipoth, however you would say it. The motherless. They're thematically perfect for a Lovecraft type breed of creature. And when you see the picture in Blood of Demons, I think it is.
Fiends.
A blood of the
Fiends.
fiends.
There we go. Blood of Fiends. The picture just really is perfect. I can't find a picture of it most of the time, but it is an excellent.
It is really good, yeah.
It's all misshapen and stuff. Some more creatures from that. From CR1 third, there's the Beheaded, which is neat if you want to have a floaty dead skull dude floating around, and there's lots of variants for it. Skeletons are nice. They also have lots of variants. Coming back to the CR1.
Your skeletons.
Yeah.
I just want to say skeletons. You can. They also have a subtype you can put on. So you can take like a 2-hit dice fighter or something and put the skeletal subtype on him and make him a skeleton, which is really nice and makes him a bit more powerful.
I've yet to do it, but skeletons are supposed to be, from what I've read, the best thing for like all you necromancers out there to bring back, because I think it's called Bloody Skeleton, automatically has fast healing just like forever and ever, unless it gets hit by like, I think a good aligned weapon is what does it.
Yeah.
No, it's unless you douse its body in holy water or consecrate the ground on which it was slain.
There you go.
It says a Bloody Skeleton is actually a CR half, so we could cover it now. And it's a Bloody Skeleton is destroyed when reduced to 0 hit points, but it returns to unlife 1 hour later, so the PCs have left, at 1 hit point, allowing its fast healing thereafter to resume healing it. A Bloody Skeleton can be permanently destroyed if it is destroyed by positive energy, if it is reduced to 0 hit points in an area of Bless or Hallow spell, or if its remains are sprinkled with a vial of holy water. So unless your PCs know about this type of one, all you would have to do is mix it in with some other skeletons, and the PCs blast through them, rah 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 rah, and maybe half of those things you just describe them as there's skeletons getting up from the ground. You see some crawling out. There's blood still trickling on some of them, and you don't tell them that they're bloody skeletons. You just tell them there are skeletons with blood still trickling on them that get up. And so they wander back.
Skeletons
thinking
are
they're safe.
also...
Yeah. I definitely have to remember the bloody skeleton monster when I actually level up in Tommy game.
Yeah, you do. It's super good.
Yeah, give the monster fighter levels, and you have a pretty good monster base.
Oh yeah, skeletons are also preferred for necromancers because they're not constantly affected by the staggered condition.
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
Zombies, dependent upon their hit dice and size, gain additional hit points, which is nice. And skeletons, dependent upon their hit points and hit die, dependent upon their hit dice and size, are given extra natural armor. And given the way that AC scales over time, like through the levels, the bonus hit points usually actually end up being more useful. But the ability to take multiple actions in a round is still more useful than the ability to take an extra punch.
Yeah. So there's that.
Also, if you choose to use these rules, using the undead, if you use the transformation wizards, I cannot speak today. The wizard's spell list transmutations. I think you can actually transform a average weak CR 1/3 skeleton and make them into another material type temporarily. I think.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with those rules.
Yeah, it would be something. It could be done, changing a weak CR skeleton to make them tougher temporarily.
Because I know they have like the clad templates for skeletons, or for like certain monsters. I think it's usually skeletons, like gold clad or silver clad or whatever. And it's you basically clad the skeleton in a particular type of metal, and based upon the metal that they're covered in, they gain special abilities. I think silver is haste, and gold is just like a strict damage boost. Maybe mercury is haste. Is it fire?
Yep, gold is fire. I'm not sure if it's the forearm mudra. It's in the CR ones, but I guess not. But the forearm mudra skeleton is also it's like you basically take a kasatha and turn them into a skeleton, and it has multi-weapon attack. It can attack with like 3 swords or 4 claws or 1 short.
Oh, here
sword.
it is. It's a CR1 monster, the golden skeleton.
There you go.
Vulnerability to cold and electricity, but it has a fiery aura and light fortification.
Yes.
Because remember, in Pathfinder, you can crit and precision damage undead.
Yeah, screw that up all the time.
All right. So we're running really tight on time. Anyone want to highlight anything else in the CR1 half? I will mention that the genie races are in there, like the Ifrit and stuff like that. The Ifrits, the Sylph and such. The Suli. Moving into CR1 is lots of different things that are fun, like brownies and carbuncles, like we've already mentioned, and the Akata, which we have had recent experience with.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is definitely here around in Pathfinder, and it's just as strong.
Yeah, the Akata are nasty monsters. Luckily, for Rod, in the off chance you follow our Starfinder game, the void affliction disease that they give you when they plant their spawn in your chest doesn't actually do anything unless you die. So I'm debating maybe just leaving it there, like forgetting about it until we're level 12, and then Rod dies and
Wade will
sends
not forget.
a bunch of Akata out of his corpse. And I become a 12th level Void Zombie, because Void Zombie is a template that increases your CR by 1.
Well, that would be thematic. But CR1s, this is where you start to see elementals come into play. The Dark Mantle falls here. One,
Oh god.
I like those. They're so nice. Surprise!
The like stingrays?
The mimic
Ceiling
that is
skeleton.
actually a cloak or whatever.
Yeah,
The
the
cloaker?
manta rays. They're like manta rays that look like cloaks. That's what it is.
Yeah. The Cloaker is the one that you can wear like a cloak. The Dark Mantle is the one that hangs on the cavern roof and flies down on you. But yeah, I want to make a character that has a Cloaker as a cloak. That is freaking cool.
What is it? There's a comic called Yet Another Fantasy Gamer comic where there's a friendly cloaker who loves to hug people. It's really cute.
Ghouls fall here. Dire Corbies. You don't hear a lot about Dire Corbies. But
I think that might be because a lot of people read them as Dire Corgi.
Dire Corgi.
Which is also, if
Dire
you're
Corgi.
curious, in the CR1 conversions for third-party publishers, is a Dire Corgi.
It also exists in book 2 or 3, I forget, but one of the Ruins of Aslan adventure path, there's definitely stats for. I don't think it's necessarily called a dire corgi, but it's a corgi in like battle armor and stuff.
But they're so bad for battle. I mean, they run around on their little tiny legs.
It's no different than Battle Pug, if you've ever read that comic.
And this is a pretty good CR1 monster to use. It is the Lemures.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lemures, yeah, they're like the super low-level devils that are
Yes,
used as the mortar of the bricks of the castles of hell.
And
just
they're also super gross.
yeah, just like the Bloody Bones monster. If you don't tell the players how to kill a Lemure, they can just come back again if they are summoned.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
all
it
summoned
have-
creatures can just come back. So
Yeah, this creature, it have DR and immunities, which is pretty nice. DR to silver, good immunity to fire, poison, mind effects, resistance to acid and cold. So this is a good monster to show some of the players about DR, immunity, and resistance types.
It's one of those good CR1 monsters that by the time you encounter them, you're probably gonna run into like 3 or 4 of them at a time. So you're gonna be like level 2, 3. So you're gonna kill them fast-ish, but they're still gonna be a pain in the ass because of that damage reduction and energy resistance.
Yeah, for sure. In Lordly Caliber, Sarah's fighting a. Oh god, I don't remember. Well, she's not fighting it now. You guys have gone different places. I don't remember what it's called. The creepy baby bug.
Beliar or something like that.
Yeah, Belial.
And they're like, I don't remember. I think the DR is the same. I think it's DR5. But DR at this low of a CR can really wreck a party because some people just aren't going to build to do that kind of damage. Or if they are, they're going to have to wait until like level 3 before like focus weapon finesse kicks in, or you have spirited charge or whatever it is you're trying to do. Unless it's
Accuser Devil. That's what it is.
unless you are like human barbarian not character sheet. a lot of times you just can't cut through this DR, and that means these guys are going to last longer, do more damage, and there you go.
And also at this level, the gremlins start up in full force. You get 3 different gremlins, which are nice to use, especially when you use them together, including the Pugwampy, and even other gremlins mistreat the Pugwampy. The Pugwampy is literally the unluckiest creature. That's why it has this whole aura of unluck. So if you want to make a group of gremlins come together that are constantly berating each other, that's a great way to do it. Another one is the Grig. If you're making a Fey encounter, having a Fawn and a Grig, or having a Grig and a Sprite, or stuff like that, those can be a lot of fun.
I forgot about the Grig.
Yeah, Grigs can be a lot of fun, especially if you can also pair them with a Griff. The Death Head's jellyfish actually has some interesting things going on with it, because it gets some poison and some different things like that are nice.
And when you're fighting this guy, you're like, and it goes back to the merfolk too, you're probably fighting them in the water, which means they're doing way more damage than you are, because unless you showed up with a piercing weapon or you just happen to, like, that's your jam, when you build a character, that dude with his like great axe or whatever is doing half damage underwater.
Mm-hmm.
To say nothing of you don't have a swim speed and you start sinking and here these guys come stabbing you, and you can get wrecked real easy if you're not ready for an underwater encounter.
Just like the Lemure, the monsters, if they're in their own environment, can be just a challenge enough if you use them right. Especially finding a water elemental in a water environment.
Yeah, water levels, you know.
I'd like to bring up really quickly Francis's familiar, since I haven't brought it up yet in the Lord of the Caliber game, is actually a Gourd Leshy, which is a CR1 monster. Which I think they have this neat ability, Gourd Leshies, called Keepsake.
I was about to say, am I reading that? Yep, I'm reading that.
And Gourd Leshies are basically, their bodies are made out of vines, like you would find in a pumpkin plant, and then their head is like a gourd, which is like a pumpkin or a
squash gourd.
Like a pumpkin.
Yeah. Gourd, pumpkin, squash gourd.
And Gourd Leshies can pop off the top of their heads like you would like a jack-o'-lantern, and they can put like a single fine-sized item like a potion or a dagger or something like that inside their heads. And while it's inside their heads, it is affected by the non-detection spell, so people don't know it's there. And it's also affected by the mending spell. Like, I think it's once every 24 hours it's affected by a use of the mending spell.
Yeah, it's clean and polished.
Yeah, and mending can repair broken magical items. So if you had a really little magic item that got messed up or something, you could stick it in the top of this Gourd Leshy's head, and in a couple of days it'd be fine. It'd be great. I think Keepsake is a really weird, eclectic ability that's really neat.
I like
That's definitely one of those things you don't think about until you really need it.
Yeah, and I feel like if you wanted to, and this would probably increase its CR, but you could make like a Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin sized Gourd Leshy that was just huge, that you could put any number of things in.
Ooh,
He's got a cannon in his head. Watch out.
That would be really cool to have like a whole quest for someone who broke a magic item and say, okay, you want to repair it? It's an heirloom magic item. You can repair it, but you've got to take it to the great... You've got to take it to the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
You break Hela breaks Thor's hammer, and you got to take it to the Great Gourd Leshy, Charlie Brown. And
Adam, I could just picture the Leshy when they come across the party asking to use it power. Why did you destroy this item? And I could see the Leshy not being happy about its body being used like that.
I feel so violated.
Possibly. Their Leshies in general are usually pretty Yeah, I mean, Tommy did a video about this on his channel, talking about the Vine Leshy that came out in alternate wilderness.
Yeah.
Alternate? Did I say alternate?
You
God
did.
damn it.
The other
Ultimate
wilderness.
Leshies are usually pretty chill. They're nature spirits. Unless you piss them off, they don't have a reason to not do things for you, assuming you
like
give them some
your
sort
opinion,
of compensation.
man.
The other thing I liked about gourd leshies in particular is they have an ability called ensnare, and this works with their natural attacks and with their like thrown seed abilities, because most leshies can throw seeds at things from their bodies. And ensnare is basically it replicates the effects of the entangle spell, and whilst the DC isn't super high, you basically I really like the sort of set piece or aesthetic imagery of this little like 2 foot tall pumpkin headed monster throwing a seed at something where a huge explosion of vines wraps around a monster to keep it, under wraps. They seem like really cute little derpy Studio Ghibli monsters to me in Pathfinder.
They're the forest spirits that you see in Princess Mononoke, but viney. That's
actually what I was going to bring that up at the next Lordly Caliber game I make it to, was that Gordy, Francis's Gord Leshy, is just makes like weird little plant noises like a Studio Ghibli monster.
So his head, when he turns his head, he has to kind of physically move it back occasionally, and it goes.
Yeah, like that.
All right. Let me see. I would be remiss if I did not mention the Sverfneblin, because they are straight OP as a player class. Just saying.
Says the guy playing whatever it is.
Hey,
I'm a Navri.
I'm a Navri.
I was allowed to play anything.
And I brought it down in one round, so.
Well, you brought it down because that thing critted on me first round. But the Smurfneblin are really good, especially if you play a gunslinger in a futuristic game. And troglodytes, giant ticks, those are disgusting.
Giant ticks are really strong, yeah.
Skeletal mounts are fun. And then the one that I wanted to make sure to mention was the Festroi. F-E-S-T-R... Oh, Festrog, excuse me. Or is it? Yeah, Festrog.
Festrog.
It is...
This hideously malformed, hairless, pustule-covered corpse moves and snarls like an undead hound.
But it's got a humanoid head.
And
you know what it is? It is those demon dog things from Dark Souls that you meet in the dark, and you're like, nope.
Oh,
that's what it is.
Yep.
That's what it is. I was like,
I
Adam.
did that area without the lantern. It was easier.
Adam, another pretty bad monster to use for one force monster is the Tooth Fairy. I put the link in the chat for Google Hangout.
Monster?
Yes. If the monster uses one of its dirty trick for a CMB, it gets to do dexterity damage to a creature, and also charisma to a player. So that's pretty terrible. You get to make a character look ugly by taking its fingernails off and teeth.
Oh, this is definitely like an adaptation of the Tooth Fairy from the Hellboy movies or the comicsology.
That's what it really feels like.
Yes. So have a face rogue, have a Tooth Fairy, make him ugly, and have damage stats. This would wreck a party potentially if they get bad rolls.
Can a Tooth Fairy take him to below 1 Dexter shot?
I think you cannot get a stat below 1 with this. I think.
'Cause I was gonna say, like, a lot of people, unless they are a sorcerer or they are a like paladin, blood rager, stuff like that, they're probably gonna neglect their charisma. So if you can just pop a couple teeth out of somebody and reduce them to 0 charisma, that seems really strong.
Yeah, the well, see, the problem with if you got reduced to like 1 charisma, you wouldn't do anything in combat anyways.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, even
You
if it's
you
like
possess
healed,
at 1 charisma, you possess no discernible personality. You can't self motivate. You can follow orders, and that's about it. You're basically an automaton at that
Yeah.
point.
which I don't guess would the PCs bother fixing, especially if they're evil? Would they bother fixing their fighter that only had 1 charisma?
No, yeah,
Kill
they
that.
could now use as a tool. Probably not. I think it would actually be. I don't know, depending on whether or not the people you played with were dicks about it. But I think playing like a fighter or a barbarian at a charisma of 1 might be kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, whenever we get back to Rise of the Rune Lords with you guys, Necross definitely has 6 charisma.
Yeah,
So-
like very, very. All of your sense of motivation is very base.
Yeah.
Food, shelter, anger, sad, happy, boner. Those are basically all of your emotions right there.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yep. Talk.
Last
Go ahead,
chance to
Adam.
put anything else in, guys, because we're going to need to sign this off. We're
I have
over
one.
an hour a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I need to go sleep this cold off. But one thing, and I was hoping Sarah would join me for this because she did it in her game like 2-3 weeks ago, something like. Challenge ratings in Pathfinder can sometimes be just super pointless and arbitrary in the sense of like scissors always cuts paper. If something is evil but really powerful, the paladin will be able to eat it for breakfast with the smite evil. If it has vulnerability to fire or like vulnerability to acid, even the wizard's acid splash at level 1, you just kind of and they
Yeah.
take 6 damage.
The alchemist or the wizard's going to be able to tear through it.
So by that same token, I think if you want to build a low CR game, and we had talked about this in chat, I don't know if it got brought up here, but if you're trying to, like, if you don't know what to do at these low levels, there is nothing wrong at all with taking, say, a Baelor, a Solar Angel, a Great Old One, whatever it is you want to do, and just roll that guy down to 1 hit dice. All his saves will drop, all his, like, special abilities that are usually terrifying will drop, and he'll only have, like, 10 hit points. So, like, your player, and this was, Joe and I had to deal with, I think it was like 8 Solar Angels. And it was super rough, and the whole time, I'm just thinking, Sarah, you know what that does. You played 1. We are like level 7. There are 8 of them. This is bad, but then they ended up being, I won't say weak, but not a full Solar Angel. So sometimes, I guess the point I'm driving at here is if you want to build a low CR encounter, especially for plot purposes, it's totally okay to take somebody who's usually way more powerful and just dumb them down a little bit.
It's possible.
I just realized that Tommy's playing in the exact same room that I'm in. If you look at the ceilings and the architecture, we are
God.
in the same room.
We did it.
This is a parallel universe we are in, or you two are in.
And by parallel universe, we mean U.S. and Canada. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
The upside down world is separated by a border.
But to I believe it. I believe it super hard. But yeah, speaking of how like the CR system or the challenge rating system in Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons can kind of be superfluous depending upon the party that you're trying to challenge using that rule of thumb. I think that's something we'll be able to challenge next week or in the future whenever we decide to do the sample encounters sort of thing. With our favorite monsters of a given CR, because a level appropriate CR that I might build using ghouls and gnolls and pugwampies isn't gonna affect, one party the same way it's gonna affect another.
Right. All right, everybody. We've made all of our remarks, so it's time to say goodbye. So, we hope that everyone enjoyed and everyone got a chance to hear some more about some different monsters that they might not have thought about before. But, as we always have to, it is time to sign off. So, thank you from the Inn of Planar Crossroads and Black Dragon Gaming. You can catch us next week on Black Dragon Gaming's channel, and we will talk about probably those sample encounters type thing. That sounds like a good idea.
I'm okay with that.
Everybody-
Yeah, I can build me an encounter in a week. I can figure that out.
All right. So we'll do that. And as always, travelers, thanks for watching and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.